It's Thursday, February 26, 2026. Failure theater in the Senate putting the foot down on the Minnesota fraud scandal, and one soundbite lost in the State of the Union shuffle. Next on the AM Update. I think we're starting to see some failure theater in the U.S. Senate after President Trump overtly called upon the United States Congress to pass the Save America Act during the State of the Union address the other night. Here's Senate Majority Leader John Thune on Fox News.
And if so, when?
Well, we will. We'll put the Democrats on the record. And it's a stark contrast, Aisha. The Democrats, even in the chamber last night, having to sit there and try and defend allowing non-citizens to vote in American elections. That is a losing proposition for them. So we will get a vote on it. And we are right now in the middle of a government shutdown, so we've got to try and get the government opened up first. But in due time, we will get that up on the floor. We will have a vote on it. We will make sure that the Democrats are on the record. It is a stark contrast between Republicans and Democrats about how they want to handle elections in this country, and this is going to put them, I think, in a very difficult position.
Oh, all that tough talk from Senator John Thune of South Dakota about, we'll make sure we bring it to vote. What he's not saying there, listen to what he's not saying. He's not saying we're going to force a talking filibuster. So what is he actually saying there? He's voting for cloture. He's voting for cloture. Which means what? He knows this is going to fail. He knows it's going to fail, which means that it's also failure theater in the U.S. Senate. He spoke later on in the afternoon as well.
What's your message to the Republicans in your conference who are pushing over and over again that you can do this with the talking filibuster?
Well, there are a couple things about that. One is, once we get on, if we were to go down that path, it's very hard to pivot and get back to open up the government. I frankly think we ought to. We need a deal, make sure that DHS, TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA, all those agencies are funded. And so I'm hopeful there will be a breakthrough on that. That's going to require some, obviously cooperation from the Democrats, which we haven't seen a lot of so far. But we want to get to the SAVE Act. We also, as I mentioned, we've got a housing bill that we can pivot back and forth to if we get a deal to open up the government.
So there's John Thune again. Well, we might be able to force talking filibuster, maybe this, maybe that, but we got to open up the government first. We got to open up the government first, and then there's this housing bill as well, and they got to line the pockets of our guys on K Street. Did I say that out loud? And then we might get to the SAVE Act. I mean, the Save America Act, or what is it called anyway? Yeah, talking filibuster. Failure theater on full display in the U.S. Senate. Well, how about this? Vice President JD Vance announced Wednesday $259.5 million in Medicaid funds for Minnesota will not be reimbursed due to fraud concerns. It's giving Democrat Governor Tim Walz 60 days to submit a corrective action plan to face further withholdings. Vance was joined by Dr. Mehmet Oz, administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, to make the announcement, which was first reported by the New York Post. In a press conference, Vice President Vance said this:
make sure that the consequences of ending these fraud programs in Minnesota don't impact the people who are enrolled in Medicaid. And at a bigger picture, how do you think that the polls show that Democrats historically have the advantage on healthcare? Do you think that these efforts on fraud might change that for Republicans?
I'm not really worried about the politics. I'm worried about the justice of it all. I think it's offensive that American taxpayers pay into these programs and they are defrauded. And I think in some ways, more significantly than that, it's really sad that American children who need these services aren't able to get them because it's going to fraudsters instead of somebody else. So here's what I think. I mean, look, we're certainly going to make sure that our anti-fraud efforts go after the fraudsters and not after anybody who actually benefits from these services. But I actually think the question is a little off in a way, because the problem is not going after the fraud. The problem is the fact that these programs are being defrauded to begin with. They will not exist. Our social safety net will disappear unless we take fraud more seriously. So what I'm most worried about is that unless we preserve these programs for the next generation, they're going to disappear and all the money is going to go to fraudsters.
Vice President JD Vance named the czar of the Minnesota fraud scandal the other night, saying $250 million not going to go back to Minnesota until Governor Tim Walz can basically put together a plan that proves he's not going to let this fraud operation happen again. Cuba says its Coast Guard shot 10 people on board a speedboat registered in Florida, killing 4 people. Cuba claims the boat opened fire on them. Other reports say that there was actually American citizens who were trying to go to Cuba on an unsanctioned visit, of course, trying to get their friends and family out of the island country. We'll see how that unfolds. It's a pretty aggressive tactic. Cuba saying its Coast Guard was opened fire upon by a U.S. registered boat vessel, and they fired back, killing 4 people. Communists, as the ones in Cuba, it's an arm of their government, often lie. We'll see how that story shakes out. In case you missed this, Democrats held their own counter-programming the other night during the State of the Union address. It's called the State of the Swamp, where they had various blow-up figures come up on a stage and act out little skits. In this skit, a bunch of blow-up frogs with human beings inside them came up on stage with this representative from Oregon.
I'm a mother. I'm a physician, and I have a flag. And I am the proud representative for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District.
That would be Maxine Dexter.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And tonight, I defy Trump and his authoritarian project by standing in joyful, radical, peaceful resistance with the Portland Frog Brigade.
All of those blow-up frogs are dancing on this stage. There were literally dozens of people in attendance at this counter-programming to President Trump's State of the Union address the other night. Senator John Fetterman, who was the only Democrat that I saw who shook the hand of Trump, went on Fox News and seems to be a little bit embarrassed by his own party once again.
I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat as a president. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Respect the office, regardless who's in that. And now for me, it's like now when half the people in my party haven't showed up, and then some of them have chosen to just yell and say and scream during all of it, I just don't think that's what we want. And I don't believe, as a Democrat, I think like dancing frogs really moves the ball for us as a party either.
John Fetterman, senator from Pennsylvania, the Democrat who shook President Trump's hand during the State of the Union, or before the State of the Union the other night. You know, I would not, if I were a sitting member of Congress, congressman or a senator, and there was a Democrat president, I would not stand and clap for everything that he said. I don't think the office of the president, at least in the year 2026, necessarily demands that from everyone. If the president of the United States said, hey, a record number of kids were transed on my watch, I would probably just get up and leave at that point. I would. Say, that's the zero-sum ball game that we're in right now. Do I respect the Ilhan Omars and the Rashida Tlaibs of the world for getting up and walking out? No, but I understand why they did. Now, one thing I would never do if I were a sitting congressman, try to heckle, make the thing all about me. I mean, you're just giving up the moral high ground at that point, which is also what Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar did. Well, lost in the shuffle of the excitement over the State of the Union was this. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, along with the gang of 8 top Democrat and Republican lawmakers, they had a classified briefing on Iran. Here's what Chuck Schumer said coming out of that meeting.
This is serious, and the administration has to make its case to the American people.
So that's all that he said. Now, a lot of people, that caught their eyes, that caught their ears, that's all that Chuck Schumer had to say after seeing a classified briefing on the state of play when it comes to Iran. He didn't say, no, we can't do this. No, we shouldn't do this. Or no, we have to do this. Absolutely. All he said was, this is a serious situation, and the president needs to make his thoughts, his case to the American people. That is a little bit interesting. Also interesting is this. 12 American F-22 Raptor fighters landed in Israel at an Air Force base on Tuesday evening as tensions in the Middle East continue to rise. The F-22 stealth jet, which operated only by the United States, is considered the world's most advanced air superiority fighter. Although no longer in production, of course, the aircraft is so highly classified, the U.S. Department of Defense has not made it available for sale to any foreign government. They landed, 12 of them, at an Israeli Air Force base earlier this week. That is the first time, to my knowledge, that the most advanced jets in the world right now, we're being told, have been based in a foreign country, or at least a Middle Eastern country, usually based in the UK. Well, when we come back, what do college students have to think about the State of the Union? The Daily Wire actually asked a bunch of them that question. Also, a curiosity in Omaha and our poll of the week. That's coming up next. On Monday, a correspondent for the Daily Wire went to a university campus to ask students what they thought of President Trump's performance at the State of the Union. The only problem is, this was recorded on February 23rd. The State of the Union was on February 24th.
College kids are telling us Trump's State of the Union didn't go so well. The only problem? It's tomorrow. Rate Trump's State of the Union speech 1 out of 10. 1's the worst, 10's the best. Negatives. And why? I think we all know a lot of reasons. Yeah. What about the State of the Union last night? 1 to 10.
It was like a 1 or 2. I mean, it was all over the place.
Probably just giving a 0. I'm gonna give it a 1.
And why do you say 1?
I don't think he's very articulate.
How did Trump do at the State of the Union?
0. I'll be real, I didn't watch it.
I didn't really watch it much. I watched it for a little bit, but turned it off.
The State of the Union last night. How was that? 1 to 10.
I know it was last night. I thought it was tomorrow.
No, you're good. You passed the test. Good job.
Good job, Daily Wire. Going to a college campus on Monday, asking, in hindsight, how was the State of the Union? How did Trump do at the State of the Union? Oh, terrible, terrible. Well, State of the Union hadn't happened yet. We go from one college university campus to another. This caught my eye, not because I've never seen one of these before, but because it was caught live on camera. Omaha police said 2 vehicles are in a sinkhole after the road collapsed. The video was provided by the University of Nebraska Omaha Police and Public Safety Department. Officers responded to the intersection of 67th and Pacific Streets around 3:30 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. When officers arrived, the drivers were out of their vehicles. No one was injured. The street was shut down. What makes this so interesting is that traffic camera, as I said, captures the moment. There's two vehicles. It looks like maybe a Jeep and then some sort of pickup, maybe a GMC Grand Canyon, or GMC Canyon, not a Grand Canyon. And you can kind of see at the beginning of the vehicle, they just pull up to this red light. Everything looks like you normally would expect it to look like at a red light. And then in between the vehicles, even from the distance that you're away from these two vehicles, from the stoplight cam, you can kind of see a little crease forming in the road right between them. And then all of a sudden, in unison, boom, they both just get swallowed up by this sinkhole. Looks like it was maybe 8 to 10 feet deep. Fortunately, as I said, nobody was hurt. You should look up that video. Just look for the Omaha sinkhole. Well, let's get to our poll of the week. I asked you, did the State of the Union move the needle for you? I left that ambiguous on purpose. You're allowed to define what move the needle means for you. I gave you 3 options and the ability, as always, to comment. Yes, no, and I didn't watch. In last place, 16.8% said no, it did not move the needle for me. In second place is yes, 38.6% said yes, it moved the needle for me. And in first place, 39.1% said I didn't even watch. Let's get to your comments. Right Wing Dad says, I made it a drinking game and following the rules I set for myself. Today is not a good day at work. Man, I want to know what those rules were. I mean, I guess if you took a drink for every time the Democrats didn't clap for something that was objectively good, you'd have a pretty bad day at work, Right Wing Dad. Jeffrey says, depends. The moving the needle part depends on what the follow-up with JD's assignment is. Well, we learned that lesson, or we learned that answer today. JD Vance, along with Mehmet Oz, They're putting their foot down. Over $250 million not going to be refunded to Minnesota until Tim Walz can prove that he can't let this happen again. James says, yes, move the needle, but now I want to see action. I want codified, enduring victories. None of this lasts if Congress doesn't put it into law. Yeah, paging John Thune. Redacted says, kinda is my best answer. I thought it was good. It wasn't a standard State of the Union, and I personally liked that. Curious what the normies thought. Well, according to some polls that I've seen, 63% said they liked what they heard at the State of the Union. Kay Atkins says, no change for me. Please, the speech was what it needed to be. I don't understand why the Democrats think this behavior was acceptable. Parker Young says, honestly, it was too vague a question. What are you asking for? What metric does said needle measure? Our general approval of his presidency? Our opinion of the entire speech? Well, this is actually used to evoke a response. And Parker Young, you responded. So, thank you. James says, already all in, so there was no room to move. Jim says, it didn't move the needle, but it did solidify the fact that no matter how treacherous the Republicans are, we cannot allow the Democrats to control our government. They demonstrated that they are straight up demonic constructs and despise the American people. I think that's probably a pretty common refrain, Jim. I think that's probably going to be what it is for most of the Republican base, which is exactly, I think, what the doctor ordered for where we were. Because the likes of Thune et al., they were doing their best to demoralize the American people. Now, Pam Bondi is still there at the Department of Justice, but we shall see. Microwave Salami says, I've microwaved salami before. It's fine. I don't think this was even a State of the Union. I heard a lot about what needs to be done, but not very much, if at all, on what has been done. Also, not much data, statistics on current matters, economics, etc. It was a beautiful political move by Trump. Yeah, I think there's a reason why he didn't spend very much time on the economy. I'll just leave it there. Mark Bongard says, it was great. That's going to do it for a Thursday. Tomorrow's Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covered on the AM Update. Make your submissions. Look for the pinned post at Real AM Update on X. That's at Real AM Update on X. Have a wonderful Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.